During the spring of 2017, CVC brought two separate groups of individuals from the countries of the Eastern Caribbean to the Dominican Republic to give them an opportunity to participate in a 10-day intensive attachment course. The attachment course comprised workshop activities and formal learning, but it also had an important component that involved work in the fields, opportunities to meet civil society organizations working with a vast array of different subpopulations, and opportunities to visit interventions and organizations throughout the country. What was critical about the attachment course was it gave the opportunity for people that come from islands with much smaller populations to witness interventions where the numbers of key populations are much greater. This was an important opportunity to get to see larger scale interventions with these key populations.
This was a totally new way of training and education. The way the information was transferred was both formal and informal, and taking us to different geographical locations.
The main difference, I think, is here you guys have more structures in place to work with key populations. Back home, because of a lot of the stigma and discrimination around people just identifying with key population, it makes it very, very hard for structures to rise up.
I mean, our community, our society is still very close-minded, and Christian beliefs, taboo, and morality are very high in our community. But we have to realize that, and we have the key populations, whether we like it or we don't like it, whether we do not support it or not, the key populations are there.
It's going to be a complete package for me when I get back home. We'll try to educate as much as possible and try to get the interventions going.
I knew the workshop was about strengthening the community, the MSM community, the trans community, and the sex workers community. And I must say, my expectations were met. And the variety of services, I mean, it's interesting. And it's nice to see the innovation given a lot of barriers that they're faced.
Organizations that we met within the city, they are doing a whole lot of work with MSM and trans and sex workers as well. And what I found is that they work together in a very efficient manner.
At the Instituto de Estudios Virológicos, or IDEV, participants were able to see how this NGO-run clinic delivers specialized care and treatment to key populations such as MSM, transgender women, sex workers, persons who use drugs, and young people living with HIV. During our field visit, the director, Dr. Ellen Koenig, gave us a tour of the facilities and introduced us to young healthcare providers being trained to offer services catered towards these key populations. Dr. Koenig also provided information on IDEV's streamlined case management approach that improves adherence and minimizes losses to follow-up, as well as IDEV's confidentiality measures, such as taking blood samples to the national lab for CD4 and viral loads, so that individuals don't have to go in person where they can be visible to their peers.
I was certainly struck by the intervention at IDEV, which focused a lot on treatment and care of persons with HIV in itself. I think one of the critical things which happened there that struck me certainly was the sort of one-stop shop for everything.
When you enter that facility, you have everything from the social worker and care plan to peer educators to the doctors, to someone that follow-ups and monitor, to the counselors. And just seeing that integrative approach within that system, it's a model I think that should be replicated throughout the Caribbean.
The variety of service that's available at one location, whereas you can go and get an HIV test, then you have to though be referred to a organization, so that you're referred all over the island. Whereas here, there are organizations that offer every service, so all the information can be collated and the holistic health of the individual is number one.
Participants also got to engage with Movimiento de Mujeres Unidas, or MODEMU, a sex workers union that has been registered since 2000. MODEMU is involved in a wide variety of projects in the Dominican Republic, including counseling and legal advice to sex workers, providing sex workers with vocational training, and street theater productions which encourage condom use and teach negotiating skills. Some participants spoke with Executive Director Jacqueline Montero about the organization and the work they do, as well as the director's personal story. Ms. Montero is a former sex worker and currently a counselor representing the municipality of Aina in San Cristobal province. Councillor Montero decided to get into politics because she felt that by doing so, she could change the realities of sex workers' lives in a way that she could not in the field. Some participants also traveled to a rural suburb of Santo Domingo, where we watched an educational street theater production delivered in a local bar, and were able to talk to the actors, who themselves are sex workers.
The intervention here in the Dominican Republic that stood out the most was the trip to Bienvenido with Modemo, understanding the conditions that they live in and what the organization does to help improve the conditions that they work in and live in, where some of them live and work at the same place, the unions, how they work together, how they provide legal assistance, and how they actually just interact with the girls. They help them improve their own lives through trainings, vocational trainings, and education.
The structures go as high as Parliament, even having a representative in Parliament, such as Jacqueline, that was from the community. And not just the structures, but the services, to see that they have such individualized services.
At a site visit to the office of La Comunidad de Trans Travesti Trabajadoras Sexuales Dominicanas, or CONTRAVED, participants learned about how this group grew from an empowerment and mobilization initiative with trans sex workers in Santo Domingo into a national network engaged in projects throughout the Dominican Republic. By 2008, CONTRAVED became the first legally registered trans women-led sex worker NGO in the Caribbean region. After the office visit, we witnessed a battle kit intervention by CONTRAVED. This model is based on a 1950s housewife Tupperware party. A trans woman hosts an evening at her home for other trans sex workers in the neighborhood and presents a battle kit consisting of condoms, lubricant, hand sanitizer, and trans-specific IEC materials in a pocket-sized purse. Designed as a prevention intervention, it also helps build solidarity and reduce rivalry among street-based trans sex workers.
Visiting CONTRAVED, the trans organization which works with trans women, I think was indeed a pleasure. And what really struck me was really and truly focusing on the interesting views that the government officials had towards such an organization in itself. I think they were very much in awe. Understanding, first of all, a lot of persons who actually reach out and work with marginalized populations sometimes never really get connected or even never get to spend time with those marginalized populations.
When we send persons into the field to do the work, they're culture shocked, like, oh my God, because the conference setting and the in-field setting, hands-on setting, is totally different. You can theorize about it all you will, when you get into the field, it's different.
I feel better to speak about the transgender women organization. This really impressed me because it goes back to home, where these people here have some form of representation, a place where they can go to feel quite comfortable and that they know they are not alone.
The participants visited the Institute of Tropical Medicine and Global Health at UNIBE, the Ibero-American University. Participants were given a tour of the laboratories and a presentation by the director, Dr. Robert Paulino. In the course of its research, the Institute has pioneered novel strategies for community outreach and data collection. The Institute also provides much-needed training and hands-on experience with key populations to practitioners from outside Santo Domingo. This way, they can deliver competent, respectful care and an appropriate package of services to these groups in areas where these populations are much smaller. Dr. Paulino, a pioneer of key population care in the Dominican Republic, shared his experiences developing and piloting models of care for MSM. The model involved dedicated services for MSM and trans women, delivered through healthcare facilities managed by NGOs in large urban centers. The second model involved developing protocols and a minimum package of services for MSM, which has been delivered at public teaching hospitals throughout the Dominican Republic. Also discussed was how dedicated service providers have helped generate data on the progress of key populations through the treatment cascade, and how this data has been used to address specific leakages within it.
Today here at the Institute of Tropical Medicine, we did learn a bit more about how you create linkages throughout the system in terms of, linking social work, behavioral, psychological, and the physician part of the entire treatment and care. I really think that is truly important, and I think that is something that is easily replicable in any country once you have a dedicated team behind you.
I learned so much from that, and how we can use integrative approach and how we can link the services. I hope when I go back to my country that I will be able to work with the Ministry of Health and able to put that cascade together, put a plan together, and able to really follow through.
I think we can adopt the system of integration that exists here in terms of the HIV care and the TB care, the STI care that is given to the key population. It's something we can do.
Unión Gay, Trans y Otro Hombres Vegano, UGTHV, is a local LGBTI organization in the province of La Vega that grew out of the need to provide support to the LGBTI persons in rural provinces of the Dominican Republic. During a visit to the UGTHV office, participants were able to hear firsthand about how UGTHV manages to establish itself and flourish despite the rural town conservatism and widespread discrimination in La Vega. One important aspect of the model is seeking allies and undertaking work with individuals from outside of the LGBTI community. For example, heterosexual women working with the group have helped deflect negative attitudes within rural communities. By reaching out to a wide range of groups, UGTHV has dispelled the notion that LGBT organizations are only looking out for their own interests and has fostered support from key allies. Some participants were able to see how UGTHV reaches out to individuals in rural communities by attending an evening intervention in the town of Jarabacoa. The intervention consisted of delivering sex education and distributing condoms and lubricant to a group of young MSM in a park where LGBT persons congregate.
I especially love this intervention at La Vega, where we interacted with the persons who work with the program. Actually, I like the fact that they made the program all-inclusive. So for this community, it's not just about trans or MSM, but they included all the other communities, providing a safe space for all.
Sitting in and having conversations with the members of that organization, a couple things struck me. One was the fact that this organization has a very high level of volunteerism from women who heterosexual women, and it shows that you don't need to be recognized in terms of your sexual orientation to work with that. The possibility of building those bridges exists, but we as NGOs need to take that step, that bold step, into building those bridges and ensuring that holistically we could actually advance the cause not just of LGBT persons, but each and every marginalized population that we're hoping to serve.
Gente Activa y Participativa, or GAIP, is a predominantly MSM organization that takes education programs to local hotspots to work directly with target populations. Their community intervention model, called Community Promises, involves 2 or more peer navigators engaged in repeated visits to the same location, providing information and testing knowledge, as well as distributing prevention commodities. Participants were able to visit a local LGBT hotspot and sex work site with peer navigators, where they were given a short presentation and then saw the model in action.
In my country, a beach like this would not be possible or isn't possible at this moment. So seeing that MSMs have an area they can just meet and no one comes, there's no violence, no one wants to attack them, it's amazing.
Everyone was very impressive. Every site that we visited and what we did was very impressive, I must say.
We can use the knowledge that we learn and the structure, what has been established in the Dominican Republic, we can bring it back to the OECS islands, where the care that is provided to these key populations is not as integrated or open as it is in the Dominican Republic.
My experience in the Dominican Republic has been amazing. I've learned so much and I've encountered so many new experiences that have truly been enlightening for me. And I really want to be able to take all of this back to my home country to help the key populations that are there.
We can take back some of these findings to Dominica and help the population there itself.
In the future, we're going to have a lot of this stuff that we're seeing here. That's what we're aiming for.
That's my summary word for this experience. Amazing.